I'm Iris Matthews, a romance author. Today we'll begin reading our excerpts from T.J. Klune's 2020 novel, The House in the Cerulean Sea. The book opens with very ordinary social worker Linus Baker, a plump, middle-aged man with thinning hair and no magical abilities, as he goes to visit and inspect an orphanage housing a handful of magical youth. We are going to read just the last few lines of Chapter 1 on page 16 of my copy, and then the opening of Chapter 2. Linus left them be, satisfied with what he'd seen. He made his way to the door once more. He sighed when he realized he'd forgotten his umbrella once again. Of all the... He opened the door and stepped out into the rain to begin the long journey home. Chapter 2. Mr. Baker! Linus groaned to himself. Today had been going so well. Somewhat. He'd gotten a spot of orange dressing on his white dress shirt from the soggy salad he'd purchased from the commissary. A persistent stain that only smudged when he tried to rub it away. And it was thundering on the roof overhead, with no signs of letting up anytime soon. He'd forgotten his umbrella at home yet again, but other than that, his day had been going well, mostly. The sounds of clacking computer keys stopped around him as Miss Jenkins approached. She was a stern woman, hair pulled back so severely that it brought her unibrow up to the middle of her forehead. He wondered every now and then if she had ever smiled in her life. He thought not. Miss Jenkins was a dour woman with the disposition of an ornery snake. She was also his supervisor, and Linus Baker didn't dare cross her. For a room he always thought was frigid, it was now uncomfortably warm. Even though it was drafty, the miserable weather only making things worse. It did nothing to stop the sweat from trickling down the back of his neck. The green glow from the screen of his computer felt overbright, and he struggled to keep his breathing slow and even. His doctor had told him his blood pressure was too high at his last physical, and that he needed to cut the stressors from his life. Miss Jenkins was a stressor. He kept that thought to himself. He was going to get a demerit. Or maybe he was going to get 5 demerits, and then it would go into his personal file, a mark that would sully his 17 years of service in the department. Maybe they'd seen the dressing stain. There was a strict policy regarding professional attire. It was listed in great detail on pages 242 to 246 of the Rules and Regulations, the employee handbook for the department in charge of magical youth. Perhaps someone had seen the stain and reported him. That wouldn't surprise Linus in the slightest. Hadn't people been sacked for smaller things? Linus knew they had. Miss Jenkins, he said, voice barely above a whisper, it's nice to see you today. It was a lie. It was never nice to see Miss Jenkins. What can I do for you? Possibly 10 demerits. The dressing was orange after all. He wouldn't need a brown box. The only things that belonged to him were the clothes on his back and the mouse pad, a faded picture of a white sandy beach, and the bluest ocean in the world. Across the top was the legend, "Don't you wish you were here?" Yes, daily. His stomach twisted sharply. You've been requested, she said slowly, to attend a meeting tomorrow morning with extremely upper management. He hadn't expected that. Not in the slightest. In fact, Of all the things Bedelia Jenkins could have said at this exact moment, that had been the least likely option. He blinked. Come again? She stood up, crossing her arms underneath her breasts, gripping her elbows. I've read your reports. They're marginally adequate, at best. So imagine my surprise when I received a memo that Linus Baker was being summoned. Linus felt cold. He'd never been asked to meet with extremely upper management in his entire career. The only time he'd actually seen extremely upper management was during the holidays when the luncheon occurred, and extremely upper management stood in a row at the front of the room, dishing out dried up ham and lumpy potatoes from foil trays, grinning at each of their underlings, telling them they'd earned this fine meal for all their hard work. Of course, they had to eat it at their desks because their 15-minute lunch break had been used up by standing in line. But still. 9 o'clock sharp tomorrow, Mr. Baker. God help me if you're late. You will, of course, make up the time you've missed. On the weekend, if necessary. Of course, Linus agreed quickly. All right, we're going to leave it there. Linus has been summoned. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next time.